They say the heart knows when it's home. Mine found its address in Liam from the first moment. I met him that rainy afternoon in the campus library. Something in me softened. Not the butterflies kind of softness, but something quieter, safer, like someone had finally seen me, not just looked at me. Liam wasn't the loudest or the most charming, but he listened. He remembered the way I took my coffee. He walked on the street side of the sidewalk. He made space for me in conversations without making it seem like a favor. I didn't fall in love all at once. I unfolded into it. After 5 years together. He proposed under the old elm tree near the lake, the same place we had our first date. A simple silver ring, no big crowd, just him on one knee, and me gasping through tears. I didn't expect to fall. It wasn't just about getting married. It was about being chosen. My entire life. I had learned to come second. Second daughter. Second priority. Second best. Kayla, my older sister, was the golden one. The kind of girl whose laughter turned heads, whose meltdowns were met with soft sighs and excuses. That's just Kayla, our parents would say. She's spirited, and if I ever pushed back, I was labeled sensitive, dramatic, too much. So I learned to be small. I kept my voice soft, my dreams quieter. I stayed out of the way and learned to take pride in being the dependable one. The invisible glue. That's why planning the wedding meant so much. For the first time, I got to choose the colors, the flowers, the story. I poured myself into it, not because I wanted a perfect day, but because I wanted to matter. Kayla volunteered to be my maid of honor. Of course, she'd said breezily, as if I should be grateful she was gracing my little wedding with her presence. At the bridal shower, she toasted me with a joke about how she'd never imagined me getting married first. Everyone laughed. Even Liam. I did too, but only with my mouth. My chest stayed silent. Sometimes I caught her watching him. Too long, too directly. Once, during a cake tasting, she ran her fingers along his forearm, complimenting his taste in suits. I remember the way my stomach flipped. Not in jealousy, in knowing. And the kind of knowing that lives in your bones before your brain dares to admit it. But I swallowed it, because that's what I did. That's what I had always done. My parents were no help. My mother was more concerned with centerpieces than emotional undercurrents. My father barely remembered the date. Just don't start any drama, my mom would whisper if I looked even mildly upset. Let her have her moment, her moment. At my wedding, still, I let it go. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the past didn't matter, that Liam loved me and I had no reason to fear shadows where there was light. And truth. I was afraid to question it. Because if I did, if I really pulled at the thread, I was terrified of what would unravel. The night before the ceremony, we had a small gathering at my parents' house. Just family. Liam and I snuck away for a moment alone in the backyard. He kissed me gently and told me he couldn't wait to see me walk down the aisle. You're glowing, he said. Must be the garden lights, I joked. He smiled, pulled me closer. No, it's you. It's always been you. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him, because for once, I wasn't in Kayla's shadow. For once, someone chose me, but borrowed dreams don't last forever, and some vows were never meant to be kept. The night before the wedding should have felt like magic, a warm summer evening, twinkling lights strung across the backyard, mismatched chairs pulled around linen-covered tables, laughter rising and falling like waves. Everyone who mattered was there, or at least everyone who was supposed to. I wore a pale blue dress, nothing too fancy. Just enough to feel special. Liam looked effortlessly handsome in a white button-up with sleeves rolled to the elbows, a glass of red wine in hand, and that easy smile people loved him for. The rehearsal went smoothly. Our officiant was a retired professor with a booming voice and kind eyes. He walked us through the order of events while I clutched Liam's hand, giggling every time we were told to kiss the air for practice. I caught Kayla watching us from the side. Her mouth curved just slightly, not quite a smile. More like amusement, or something else I couldn't name. During dinner, things started to twist out. It was subtle at first. She sat across from Liam, not next to me, even though the seating chart had her 2 chairs over. She had switched without asking. My mom noticed but said nothing. Kayla leaned in too close when she spoke to him, laughed a little too loudly, touched his arm too casually. I watched her pour him more wine before he even asked. Watched her lift his napkin off the ground like it was instinct. Their conversations were quick, coded, like they had private jokes I wasn't in on. Every time I tried to join in, she'd pivot the topic or raise her eyebrow in a way that made me feel childish. Small dot at one point, she turned to me and said, "You're really lucky, Ava. I mean, Liam's such a loyal guy. Hard to find someone like that these days." The way she said loyal made the back of my neck Liam just laughed. "Well, I am marrying the best woman I know." Kayla raised her glass. "To Ava, the lucky one," and everyone clapped Dot except me. I smiled, but something inside me stilled. Like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Dot. Later in the evening, I pulled my mom aside as she set out the dessert tray. "Is it just me?" I asked softly. "Or is Kayla acting strange?" She didn't even pause. "Ava, don't start. You always read too much into things. I just mean she keeps finding ways to be around Liam. It's off." She sighed, exasperated. "She's excited for you. She's your sister. Can't you just enjoy this?" There it was again. "You're too sensitive." The words that followed me like shadows. Even on nights with fairy lights and champagne, I went back to the table. Kayla was standing now, telling a story about how Liam once carried a drunk frat guy home during college. Everyone laughed. I smiled tightly. She knew that story because I told it to her years ago, but now she was telling it like she'd lived it. Like she had been there. Liam glanced over at me, and for a brief second, I thought I saw something. Hesitation, guilt. But it vanished behind his practiced grin. When I excused myself to go to the restroom, I caught a glimpse of them through the window. Kayla leaning in, whispering something in his ear. He didn't pull away. They weren't touching. Not exactly, but they also weren't not. I stared at myself in the mirror, hands gripping the porcelain sink. My eyes were wide, glassy. My chest felt tight, like my ribs were trying to trap something that wanted out. A scream, a sob, a knowing. "Don't be dramatic," I whispered to myself. "Don't ruin your own wedding." Back outside, the plates were cleared. My father tapped his glass and made a toast about love and forever and how lucky Ava is to find a man who adores her. Kayla beamed through it. Liam reached for my hand under the table. I let him hold it, though mine had gone cold. When the night ended, I walked back to the guest room alone. Kayla stayed out back with Liam, helping clean up, she said. My parents said their goodnights, already buzzing from wine and praise. In my room. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the dress hanging on the closet door. Ivory satin. Simple, elegant. I imagine walking down the aisle in it. Imagine Liam looking at me the way grooms are supposed to. Awe. Devotion, certainty. But for the first time, I wasn't sure what I saw in that image. Or if I was the only one seeing it. Sleep didn't come easily. And when it finally did, it was filled with half-formed dreams and flickering lights. I woke up once in the middle of the night and swore I heard laughter down the hallway. A woman's. Laugh. Hers. But maybe it was just in my head. That's the thing about foreshadowing. It never feels like a warning when you're living. Through it, it just feels like a smile that lingers too long. The morning of your wedding is supposed to feel like the beginning of everything. Mine felt like the end of something I hadn't yet named. I woke up before sunrise. Not from excitement, just instinct. My body tense. My chest hollow, like I'd already been grieving something I hadn't consciously lost. The house buzzed with activity. Hair curlers humming, laughter floating from the kitchen, my mother fluttering around with a clipboard and under-eye patches. Kayla's absence was the first wrong note in the symphony. No one seemed to notice. She's probably grabbing coffee, Mom said casually. You know how she is? Always last minute. I didn't respond. I was too busy staring at the bouquet on the table, peonies and eucalyptus, the ones I'd picked because they reminded me of quiet mornings and calm decisions. They suddenly looked too soft, addressed in silence. The makeup artist chattered nervously, filling the room with words I didn't hear. My dress fit perfectly, ivory silk that skimmed the floor like a secret. I stood in front of the mirror, a bride by every standard, except the one that mattered. Where was Kayla? Where was Liam? At the church, the guests were already arriving. Old family friends I hadn't seen since childhood. Colleagues from Liam's architecture firm. My former college roommates. They smiled when they saw me step out of the car. Some clapped. A little girl tossed petals before me, even though it wasn't her turn, but the groom's side of the aisle was thinner than I expected. Still, I smiled. I nodded. I waited. I was escorted to the bridal suite inside the church, a little room with stained glass windows and too many chairs. The bridesmaids bustled around me, snapping selfies, whispering about the food. Kayla still hadn't arrived. And Liam? 10 minutes to ceremony. My father peeked his head in. His face looked unsure. Ava, he said slowly, there's a delay. Nothing serious. Just a little hiccup. We're trying to reach Liam. Might be a phone thing. His voice wobbled at phone thing. I nodded. My heart didn't race. It stopped. My hands were steady. My breath even. I sat down on the edge of the couch and adjusted my veil, like I had timed that time, stretched. 5 minutes, 10, 20. Be efficient came in and whispered to my mom. She gasped, one hand flying to her chest. My aunt reached for her water. Someone knocked over a chair. Then the whispers turned into noise. A bridesmaid returned from the parking lot, her face pale. She held up her phone wordlessly, a news alert open. Liam and Kayla, she said slowly. They got married. This morning. City Hall. The words landed like bricks. The room fell into stunned silence. Someone dropped their phone. Someone else cursed under their breath. My mother stood still, eyes glassy. That doesn't make sense, she whispered, but it did. It made perfect sense. I felt nothing. Not yet. I stood. I walked to the mirror again. I looked at myself, gown perfectly steamed, makeup flawless, hair sculpted like a sculpture, but I didn't see a bride. I saw a joke. I saw a woman who had planned a future with people who had been planning her humiliation. A bridesmaid tried to grab my hand. Ava, say something. Are you okay? I shook my head. Not to say no, but to shake off her voice. I opened my mouth, but there were no tears. No sobs, no hysterics. Just silence. A deep, impossible silence, because some pain doesn't cry. It burns. It simmers. It becomes something else. Outside. Someone had told the guests. I could hear the murmur ripple through the church walls. Someone sobbed. Another cursed. My dad began calling Liam's number over and over. Voicemail, voicemail, and Kayla. She didn't even bother to lie. She texted my mother a single line. Please understand. We didn't mean to hurt her. Didn't mean to hurt me. They planned a wedding the night before mine, and Didn't mean to hurt me, Dot. There were photos posted within the hour. A blurry image of them standing before a plain courthouse backdrop. Her in a white dress that looked suspiciously like the one she once said made me look too washed out. Him with the same crooked tie he had picked out for her ceremony, Dot in the background. Their mutual friend, Toby, officiating. I remembered asking Toby to speak at my reception. He'd said he was out of town. I remember everything now. I walked back out toward the altar. The guests were beginning to leave. Some stared at me with pity. Others avoided eye contact. One of my cousins started to say something, stopped. I walked down the aisle. Anyway, alone, in silence. I made it to the altar and stood there for what? I didn't know Dot to bury a version of myself. Maybe Dot the version who believed love was loyalty. Version who thought family meant safety. Version who didn't know that two of the most important people in her life had been building a world without her. Behind me, the priest cleared his throat. I turned to him. Could I have a moment? I asked Dot. He nodded. Everyone else stepped back, and I stood there, Ava, the almost bride, the woman who had never really been first in her own story, and I felt something start to shift, not break. Not collapse. Dot sharpened. Dot this wasn't grief. Dot this was the moment steel is forged. The next morning, the house was quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that follows an explosion, dust still in the air, foundation still trembling. I hadn't slept. I'd taken off the wedding dress sometime after midnight and folded it neatly, as if respecting the ceremony it never received. Then I sat by the window until the sky began to soften, watching the sun rise like it had the audacity to show up anyway. Downstairs, the voices began. Dot soft, careful, tense. Dot by the time I came down. My mother had already brewed coffee and set out breakfast like it was any other Sunday. My father sat at the table reading the same newspaper page for 20 minutes. No one looked at me until I poured a cup of coffee. Then, like they'd rehearsed it, they began. We didn't know, my mom said. If we had, you did know, I said quietly. You just didn't want to believe it. That stopped her for a moment, but not for long. She's impulsive, she offered, as if Kayla's betrayal was a character quirk. You know that. She's always been ... spirited. Spirited. That was always the word. When Kayla screamed at teachers, she was expressive. When she stole my sweater and lied about it, she was assertive. When she broke my phone in high school and blamed me, she was passionate. When I cried, I was overreacting. When I questioned them, I was disrespectful. When I needed comfort, I was needy. You need to be the bigger person here, my father said, not even looking up. I laughed. Not loudly. Just one breath, sharp and bitter. You mean the quieter person? The one who doesn't cause problems. They didn't deny it. That morning, I realized something I had always suspected. I had never really been their favorite. Not even close. Kayla was the sun in our house. Too bright, too hot, and everything revolved around her. I had learned to be the moon. Distant, reflective, quiet. She got the bigger bedroom with the view. I got the room next to the noisy laundry machine. She got the new phone. I got the hand dash me dash downs. She got defended. I got disciplined. Once, when we were teenagers, she crashed her car sneaking out to meet a boy. My parents covered for her, paid for the repairs, told the neighbors it was a hit and run. When I came home crying after a breakup, my mother told me to stop being dramatic. Every injustice had been subtle, survivable, but it had accumulated over the years like sediment. Now it had hardened into stone. You have to understand, my mom said, voice trembling. She didn't mean to hurt you. She married my fiancé, I said, my voice flat. She didn't trip and fall into it. She planned it. She's still your sister, my father muttered. No, I said. She used to be. We sat in silence after that dot. I could see it in their faces, the discomfort, the annoyance. I was the problem now, not Kayla, the runaway bride. Me, the girl who refused to smile through betrayal. The story they told themselves was already forming. Ava is too emotional. Ava overreacted. Ava always finds a way to be the victim. I stood to leave. My mother followed me to the door. "She's your blood," she said. Like that explained everything. I turned slowly. "And what am I to you?" She blinked. "Because if she's my blood," I said, "and she did this to me." "And you still defend her?" "Then maybe I don't need family like that." She didn't respond. I left. I didn't pack much. Just a few clothes, my laptop, my dignity. The latter felt heavier than usual. Maybe because I'd finally started using it as I drove away. I realized something. This wasn't just about Liam. This wasn't even just about Kayla. This was about a family that had trained me to expect less. To accept crumbs, to believe that love was something you earned by shrinking, and I was done being small. I didn't leave with a dramatic speech or a slam door. I didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing what I felt. I just disappeared. No note. No final message. No digital trail. Just me, a half-packed suitcase, and the steady decision that I would no longer exist in a story where I was never the main character. I left the next morning while the house still slept. The birds weren't even singing yet. The roads were empty. The sky a dull gray. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Like it knew I was crossing an invisible line between the life I was told to live and the one I was going to carve out myself. I drove for 10 hours, straight state lines blurring past my window, tears refusing to come. There were no dramatic sobs, just a quiet kind of hollow, the kind that settles into your bones when you've lost everything you never really had. I ended up in a small town 2 states over. One of those places with cheap rent, strip malls, and gas stations that still played 80s music on outside speakers. I found a shoebox apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The water ran rusty for the first few minutes. The heating clicked like it was chewing metal. It was perfect. I changed my number, closed my social accounts, canceled every subscription that carried my name. I emailed the wedding vendors, told them to keep the deposits. I didn't ask for refunds. I didn't want anything that reminded me of who I was supposed to be. I bought a new phone. A flip one. No apps, no camera. No temptation to scroll through photos that had become evidence of the lie. My days became routines. I took the night shift at a local diner. It wasn't glamorous. The uniforms smelled like grease, and the customers were either lonely or drunk or both. But there was something strangely comforting about it. No one knew me. No one expected me to smile unless I meant it. I served coffee, took orders, kept my head down. I lived in silence. No romance. No friends. Just purpose. I let myself disappear into that life. There was freedom in it. No explanations. No performing. No comparisons. Every night I'd walk home under flickering streetlights. The cold would bite my skin, and the quiet would press against me like a second skin. I didn't mind. I didn't need noise anymore. I had spent years swallowing words, choking on politeness, bowing to other people's comfort. Now, I lived in a world where silence was mine, chosen, claimed. I found a second job cleaning offices after hours. The solitude was addictive. Mopping floors, wiping fingerprints, organizing spaces no one noticed. It gave me the illusion of control, something I hadn't felt in years. When I wasn't working, I was reading. Not love stories, not fairy tales, books on boundaries, on trauma, on self-worth, therapy podcasts, psychology lectures, anything that helped me understand why I had let so much happen to me. I didn't miss. Them. Not Liam, not Kayla, not even my parents. Or maybe I did. But only in the way you miss a version of home that never existed, a memory you created out of longing. Not reality. People at the diner called me Miss Quiet, sometimes blue eyes, because I never wore makeup and my eyes stood out more. They asked no questions, and I offered no details. One night, a woman sat at the counter, middle-aged, sharp lipstick, kind eyes. You look like someone who's survived something, she said gently. I didn't respond. She didn't press. Instead, she left me a $20 tip on a $5 meal and said, whatever it was, it didn't win. You're still here. That was the first time I almost cried. Not because of pain. Because someone finally saw me, not what I gave, or who I pleased, just me. I didn't become a new person overnight, didn't get a makeover or a sudden life revelation. That little by little, I reclaimed myself. In a town where no one called me too sensitive, where no one compared me to a sister who knew how to steal the sun, where my silence wasn't weaponized. It was sacred. I didn't disappear because I was broken. I disappeared because I was healing. And sometimes you don't need witnesses for that. 2 years, that's how long it took to turn silence into strength. No shortcuts. No glow-ups. Just the slow, stubborn work of building something real. At first, it was small. A few side gigs decorating local weddings. I had an eye for details, the kind of soft flourishes that made people cry without knowing why. Candles placed just right. Music cued at the perfect second. The way a room could shift its entire energy just by adjusting the lighting. People noticed. Brides who had been ghosted by flaky coordinators. Grooms terrified of timelines. Mothers of the bride, teetering between joy and emotional collapse. I made them feel calm, safe. I didn't just plan weddings. I managed chaos with grace, and oddly enough, it was everything they said I couldn't do. She's too emotional. She's too sensitive. She never survive in high-pressure situations. Turns out, my so-called weaknesses were my strongest tools. Clients started referring me. Then venues. Then vendors. Soon, I wasn't just working weddings. I was curating experiences. I filed the paperwork for my LLC under a name no one from my old life would recognize. Second Light Events. I like that. Second Light. Not first, not best, just the one that comes after darkness. The kind that's softer, earned, real. I rented a tiny studio space downtown. It had brick walls and a window with too much sun, but it felt like mine. I painted the walls myself, kept a vintage record player in the corner, burned lavender candles every morning. Clients loved it. You make stress disappear, one bride told me, tearing up as I pinned her veil. You just get it. And I did. Because I had been her. Not the bride exactly, but the woman who wanted to believe in something beautiful again. By year 2, I had a full team. 2 assistants, a florist on retainer, partnerships with high-end venues. My calendar was booked 6 months out. One of my weddings even got featured in a digital lifestyle magazine. They used words like visionary, graceful under pressure, luxury event whisperer. I read the article 3 times that night, sitting cross-legged in my studio, sipping tea out of a chipped mug. Not because I needed validation, but because I wanted to honor the girl I used to be. The one who once cried over a ruined engagement while folding diner napkins at 3 a.m. I didn't chase love anymore. I didn't chase approval. I chased excellence. And every time I saw a bride walk down the aisle I had designed, every time I watched someone step into a moment that would become a memory, I healed just a little more. Then, one afternoon, he walked in. I didn't recognize him at first. He had grown a beard, lost weight, the kind of transformation that screams, I'm doing fine, even when it's hollow. He was there with his company. They were sponsoring a gala for a luxury travel brand. Needed a planner. Someone had recommended me. He didn't know it was me, not until I stood up to shake his hand and said, softly, "Hello, Liam." He blinked like he'd seen a ghost, then tried to recover. "Ava?" Just my name. No apology, no shock, just confusion. I smiled. Not the kind I used to give him. Not soft. Not eager. Professional. Detached. Bulletproof. I wasn't expecting, wow. You look different. I am. We spoke briefly. Business only. I handed him my portfolio and told him I'd follow up by email. He lingered like he wanted to say more, but I didn't offer space. That night, I received an email. Subject, "You, Ava, I can't believe it's you. I've thought about you a lot. I know I don't deserve a response, but seeing you today, it brought everything back. You've become something incredible. I'm glad you're doing well, truly." Liam, I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say, because the truth is, I didn't become incredible to prove anything to him. I became incredible to stop shrinking in rooms filled with people who never saw me. I became the woman I needed when I was broken, and the woman they never imagined I could be. That soft, invisible girl in the corner. She runs a 6-figure company now. She curates dreams for strangers and gives them beauty she had to build for herself. She signs her own checks, writes her own stories, and she doesn't cry over men who leave. She lets them watch her rise. It was a rainy Thursday morning when the inquiry came in. High profile client. 6-figure wedding budget. Exclusive venue already secured. They needed someone discreet, creative, and calm under pressure. The email was brief, signed by an assistant named Mia. I skimmed it between meetings and handed it off to Maya, my junior planner, to schedule the consult. No names were mentioned, just a date, a location, and the note that the couple had been burned by drama in the past and wanted a quiet, elegant affair. We slotted them into my Thursday consult block. By then, I'd become used to unusual requests, emotional brides, overbearing in-laws. Nothing surprised me anymore. Or so I thought that afternoon. I walked into my studio's main meeting room, iPad in hand, hair pinned back, blazer crisp, ready to do what I always did. Solve chaos with grace. I glanced at the couple sitting by the window. I froze. Just for a second. A blink. Then I walked forward like nothing had happened. He didn't recognize me at first. Of course he didn't. The last time Liam saw me, I was a humiliated bride in a gown that never touched the aisle. I had been quiet, ghost pale, wrecked up now. I was light years from that girl. Hair swept into a tight chignon. Subtle makeup. Diamond stud earrings. Designer heels. Confidence stitched into every movement. The woman beside him smiled and stood. Blonde, polished, corporate cool. She extended her hand. "I'm Victoria," she said. "And this is my fiancé, Liam." I took her hand. Then turned to him. Liam's eyes widened. I watched the blood drain from his face like someone had flipped a switch. "Ava," he whispered. "Mr. Rhodes," I said, shaking his hand like he was just another client. Victoria glanced between us. "You two know each other?" Liam opened his mouth, closed it. "I saved him. We went to college together," I said smoothly. "Long time ago." She smiled, satisfied. "Small world." Liam still hadn't blinked. I sat. "So," I said, pulling up the intake form. "Let's talk about your vision." Victoria took the lead. She wanted something classic, minimalist, a rooftop ceremony, live string quartet, champagne tower. She showed me her Pinterest board, her color palette, her custom embroidered veil. She was charming, confident, entirely unaware of the firestorm. Liam was choking on beside her. He didn't say much. Every time our eyes met, I held his gaze, not with hate, with indifference. And that's what rattled him most. I wasn't broken. I wasn't vengeful. I was untouchable. professional, unbothered, in control. By the end of the consult, Victoria beamed. You're perfect. Exactly the energy I need. You're hired, I nodded. We'll send the contract this evening. I'll be your direct point of contact. I extended my hand again. She shook it, grateful. Liam hesitated. When I turned to leave, I heard him finally speak. Ava, wait. I paused, but didn't turn around. Yes. He lowered his voice. This isn't what it looks like. I turned then, just slightly, enough to look him in the eye. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. A job. And I'm very good at mine. He didn't speak again. I walked out later that night. After the contract was signed and deposit transferred, Maya knocked on my office door. I looked them up, she said. Do you want me to handle this one instead? I shook my head. No, I said, smiling faintly. This one's mine, because karma doesn't always come screaming down a hill. Sometimes it walks in wearing heels, holding a clipboard, and hands you a timeline with your own name on it, and you thank her for showing you who you used to be and who you'll never be again. The bridal boutique was all glass and gold marble floors, hush lighting, racks of silk and lace that whispered wealth with every sway. Victoria had insisted I attend the dress fitting. You just get me, she said. You know what elegance looks like without trying too hard? I smiled, nodded. Of course, Liam would be there too, she'd mentioned. Not for the dress. Of course, he was just tagging along for tux measurements in the showroom next door. I arrived 10 minutes early. Not because I was nervous, because I wanted time to own the room. Power isn't loud. It enters quietly and waits to be noticed. Victoria greeted me with a hug, already glowing in her first fitting. Ava, this place is everything you said it would be. Only the best, I replied, noting the way Liam glanced up from the sofa in the corner. His jaw tensed the second he saw me. I didn't flinch, just offered a polite nod and turned back to Victoria like he was nothing more than a shadow in my periphery. She tried on 3 dresses, all beautiful, all wrong for her. Think we need something with more structure? I said gently. Something that feels like you, powerful but effortless. She lit up. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I handed the stylist a new option. Satin, clean lines, dramatic train. Timeless. Victoria disappeared into the fitting room. The silence between Liam and me thickened. I didn't speak. I didn't look at him. I simply took out my iPad and began reviewing the updated seating chart. That's when he finally said, You're really doing this? I glanced up, one brow lifted. Doing what? This whole performance, he muttered. It's cold, Ava. I tilted my head like I couldn't quite hear him. Cold? I repeated. You once said I was too emotional to function. He looked away. The stylist returned. Victoria stepped out in the new gown. It was perfect. She turned in the mirror, beaming. This is it. I can feel it. I smiled. You look stunning. I meant it, not because I cared, but because her beauty didn't diminish mine. Her happiness didn't silence my strength. That was the difference now. Later, while Victoria changed, Liam lingered near the hallway. You don't even care, do you? He asked low. I looked at him, finally. Held his eyes, calm, poised. I cared, I said. But caring about you nearly destroyed me. I learned to care about myself instead. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. But you took the job, he said. I smiled. Yes, I said. Because it's just a job. And I don't run from ghosts. He didn't reply. He COULDN single quotes T dot. Victoria reemerged, chattering about veils and shoes. Completely unaware of the storm she'd walked through unscathed. I nodded, made notes, adjusted fittings. Every movement deliberate, professional, powerful. Not once did I raise my voice. Not once did I need to because true power doesn't beg to be. Seeing dot, it watches the man who left you for your sister tremble because you didn't fall apart. You rose, silently. The air was thick with roses and string quartet music. Guests whispered behind manicured hands. Photographers moved like ghosts, quiet and invisible. It was wedding perfection, the kind that made magazines beg for a feature, and I had orchestrated every second of it. The ceremony was set on a hilltop estate, drenched in golden hour light. Ivory petals lined the aisle. A glass altar shimmered under a canopy of orchids. It was flawless. Cinematic. Liam stood at the altar, hands clasped. Tuxedo pressed, I watched him from the back of the aisle, clipboard in hand. Earpiece in place. He hadn't seen me yet. Victoria stood beside me, radiant in her gown. She was ready, glowing. On your cue? I asked gently. She nodded. I trust you. Of course she did. She didn't know that this day wasn't just hers. This was mine. Not a day for revenge. Not a day to make a scene. Just a moment, one perfect, elegant, silent moment to reclaim the place where I had once been broken. I stepped in front of her, straightened my shoulders, smoothed my dress, sleek, black, powerful, and I walked down the aisle, first, not as a bride, as the woman leading the ceremony, the architect of the dream. And as I did, Liam looked up. It took him a heartbeat to register me. And then he froze. His breath caught. His eyes widened. And for the first time since our shared disaster, I saw it. Panic, recognition, regret. The guests didn't notice. They saw only grace. A calm professional. A woman doing her job flawlessly. But Liam? He saw the full picture. He saw the girl he'd left behind. Now running the stage, he thought he owned. Victoria followed behind me. Slow and steady, veil floating like mist. I stepped aside at the altar, positioned her gown perfectly, gave a quiet nod to the officiant. Then I turned just for a moment and met Liam's eyes, and I smiled, not wide, not cruel, just enough to say, you're standing in a life I built for you, but it doesn't belong to you anymore. He blinked, swallowed. Too late. The music shifted. Vows began. The crowd leaned forward, but Liam, he kept glancing at me. He couldn't stop, because this was the altar where I was supposed to fall apart, and instead, I was the one holding it all together. Every candle, every bloom, every breath of magic in the air. My hands had placed it there. Not as the abandoned woman, as the creator, the conductor, the quiet force behind the beauty. And I said nothing. That was the most powerful part. I didn't need to expose him. Didn't need to speak of betrayal or pain. Didn't need to scream, cry, or confront. I just stood there, elegant and still, and let him feel it. Feel the weight of everything he threw away. Feel the hollow space inside where certainty used to live. Feel the sting of realizing the most composed person in the room was the one he'd tried to destroy. As the ceremony ended, the guests cheered. The couple kissed. Cameras flashed, and I turned, clipboard in hand, and exited down the aisle with quiet grace. Behind me, I knew his eyes were still following, but he would never catch up again. The city hums beneath me, soft, golden, alive. I sit barefoot on my rooftop terrace, a chilled glass of champagne in hand. The skyline sparkles like it's proud of me, like it watched me crawl and rise and finally arrive. There's no music, no party, just the quiet clink of glass against glass as I pour a second drink, not for someone else. For me. The wedding is over. My part. Flawless, no mistakes, no slips, no revenge dressed in drama. Just elegance. And power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need applause to exist. I scroll through my phone. Liam's name still sits there, buried in my contacts. So does Kayla's. I tap once. The screen asks, delete contact? Yes, dot, no hesitation, dot. Then I open my Instagram. Unfollow, not out of anger. Not because I need them to notice, but because I no longer care if they do. I sip my champagne and smile. For so long, I thought closure meant confrontation, that I had to look them in the eye, make them feel what I felt, demand something, an apology, a confession, a crack in their mask, but I was wrong. I didn't need closure, dot. I needed distance. I needed to outgrow the version of me that waited on doorsteps that would never open, dot. And now I don't just walk away. I walk above it all. I think about the girl I used to be, the one who whispered instead of asking, who apologized when others hurt her, who thought being soft meant being weak, but softness was never the problem. I wasn't too emotional. I wasn't too sensitive. I was just unprotected, dot. And now I protect myself, dot, with boundaries, with silence, with a life so full their absence doesn't echo anymore. People ask if I've forgiven them. The truth? I don't think about forgiveness much, because that story, the one where I needed them to fix what they broke, isn't mine anymore. I'm not standing in the rubble. I'm standing in the skyline. I light a candle. Not for them. For me. For the girl who survived, and for the woman who never stopped becoming. The city exhales. So, do I, dot? I take a final sip, close my phone, and stand, dot. No goodbyes, dot. Just a quiet, steady walk back inside, because peace doesn't always look like a happy ending. Sometimes it looks like letting go without needing anyone to see you do it. And that's freedom.